Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I have a really cool show for you this week with an Israeli-born pilot, Eliya Zemmour, who is now living in Switzerland, but still goes back to his homeland pretty frequently to knock out flights. And on his last trip, he broke the country record, smasher from way down south to way up north. And we dissect the flight and talk about how he found the launch. And there are some difficulties with flying Israel. Obviously, the borders are no-go zones with Jordan and Syria, and I got to get a lot more geographically aware having this talk, and I pretty much just looked at XContest and looked at his flight and looked at the countries around him, and Egypt, of course, but it was fascinating and beautiful, and it's not without its difficulties, but if you're willing to give it a go, it's pretty special. So yeah, we talk about his flying in Israel and how he got into it and how he thinks about going there and the seasons, and I think it's all pretty inspiring stuff. I have no housekeeping in this one. Just got back from a very adventurous X-Alps where I was covering a lot of it there, and I know many of you reached out and said you enjoyed that. It was pretty wild and pretty incredible pace this year, and tons of fun. And hopefully I have a job there in the future if I decide not to compete again and do that, because it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. It was cool getting in the air with everybody every day. And went straight from there to Chelan for U.S. Nationals and just got back from that. So I need some sleep. That's what I'm going to go do. Enjoy this show. Cheers. Eliya, welcome to the show. We've been trying to put this together for a few weeks. Thanks for your patience. And I thought I'd be talking to you in Israel, but it's looking out your window. You're not in Israel. It sounds like you're in Chamonix, huh?
I'm in lovely Chamonix. Hey Gavin, how is it going?
Fantastic. It's going great. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for having me.
you bet. You bet. Understand the weather's turning and it's shaping up over there. Get on the flight tomorrow to come over and be in your part of the woods, but you've been getting some good flying lately.
I had a couple of good flights. Not too many actually. This season, April and May were not very stable, and seems like kind of winter was dragging longer than usual here. But the last 1 2 weeks were quite back into normal routine, and it's getting better. And I'm hoping to do a bit more flying.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw the first 300K FAIs go down about a week and a half ago. There was some nice ones over in Austria and some really good flights in the Vallis, and it looks like things are shaping up.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. I mean every year I look on the flight and I see like it's getting bigger and bigger. It seems like more and more pilots are able to crack the 300 kilometers, and it's pretty amazing. I mean the level right now in Europe is just insane.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I just watched the worlds and the consistency of the top guys, especially the French this year. Holy smokes, they really put it together. It's very impressive. Do you compete as well?
I'm not doing a lot of competitions, to be honest. I was tasted. I tested actually for a while, and I mean it's great to get better and you learn a lot. But I'm not really. I don't like flying in a goggle. So I'm more trying to do like adventurous flying and going cross country.
So you're give us a little bit about your history and why you reached out, and what are we going to talk about today? I'd like to hear more about certainly flying in Israel, and yeah, what brings you to the mayhem?
Well, I basically I grew up in Israel. I'm an Israeli and French, but I spent my childhood in Israel, and then around the age of 19, I moved to Europe, and then I started to do a bit of mountaineering, a bit of climbing, and at some point I started to do some flying. I got back to Israel approximately 6, 7 years ago. I started to visit a bit more Israel more regularly, and I started to go over there with my glider and see what I can do. And then I discovered it's quite an interesting place to fly in, for many reasons actually. You have a lot of sun over there, so it's a great destination if you're trying to escape from the winter in Europe. With more than 300 sunny day per year, I mean you can do quite a lot over there, and it's very versatile. Um,
Hmm.
yes, so it's I mean it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an expert, you can always find something interesting to fly over there. So in just half an hour from Tel Aviv, you have this lovely beach soaring, which is very kind of social flying just along just above the boulevard, and it's quite lovely, and you can it's kind of a cheap airtime, and it's very nice. You land, you go for a beer. The north is completely different than that. You have a beautiful lake at the north, and you're flying above green meadows, and the south will look completely different, right? And the south will be a full-on desert, and very remote, very wild, and a lot of places to explore over there. So it's quite interesting in that aspect. It's a big menu for flying, and you can just decide how you would like to spend it over there. The other interesting part, it's a very small country, so you can within 2 3 hours of driving, you can pretty much cover the entire country and visit different areas, and each one of them will look like completely different country.
And what is the season? Is it year round? Because you're quite a ways south. You're south side of the Med, and I would imagine it's relatively warm year round. Is that right?
Yes, you can fly over there year round. I mean, I have to say that, I mean, to begin with, whatever I know about Israel, it's only from the months I'm visiting over there, which is normally around November, December, and then a bit of March before I start the ski touring season in Europe. So that's
Hmm.
kind of my experience over there in Israel, and it's very interesting. If you would like to go big, shoulder seasons are the best. I would say around April, May, and
Okay.
during the summer it's getting hot with a lot of west wind, and it's very consistent. You might not be able to go quite big in terms of distance, but you will be able to fly every day somewhere.
Hmm. And what are the challenges of what are the things people should know before setting up a trip and going there to fly? What are the is there tough airspace? Or are the borders? Could you fly over the border, for example, into Jordan, or is that just no way? You got to stay
No,
within the
it's
country.
yeah, it's not going to be a very smart idea. I mean, politically, it's a bit sensitive, so don't try to do anything
Sure.
stupid like flying close to the borders. You have in the north the border with Lebanon, Syria, and that's a bit of a sensitive area. In the south, it's close to Egypt, and the east you have Jordan. I wouldn't get too close to the borders. It's a sensitive. It's a sensitive system over there, but I think that the first stop over there will be to speak with the local community. The local community of
Hmm.
the pilots in Israel are super supportive, and they know a lot about where you can fly and where it's not going to be a very good idea. It's a very young sport in Israel, and most of it is not regulated. So there are no very there are no hard rules of what you can do and what you cannot do. You just have to use your
Hmm.
common sense and try not to fly above, military bases or airports. Basically, things that you would try to
Same
do
as you'd
as
have
well.
to worry about anywhere.
Exactly, pretty much.
And what are the conditions like? Are you launching off, how high are the mountains? What would you compare it to? Is it like flying in Greece? That's kind of what I'm imagining in my mind, or Macedonia, or is that totally wrong?
I'm not sure about Greece. I never flew over there, but it's not similar to anything I flew before. I mean, it is a
Whoa.
flatland.
Whoa.
It is in the category of flatland, but it's not behaving like Colombia. I mean, in Colombia, it works textbook, right? I mean, you get into a thermal, you maximize your altitude, and you glide out, you search for the next thermal, and you keep going, right? In Israel, the flying style is very different. It seems because of the predominant wind, you always have to work with the wind. So try to choose your takeoff according to that. And once you get into a climb, I think that the best thing is try to stay in the thermal and try to uh, while you're in it, you will realize that the thermal itself is wandering, and you just being over there, you realize that you already did like 20, 30 kilometers until you lose it, and then you start to search again for a thermal. I haven't seen this in any other places in the world. I haven't seen this in Colombia, definitely not in the Alps, not in Mexico. So it's something that you need to be able to understand and adopt your flying style according to it. But once you get it, you can do lovely distance. The other interesting feature that you have over there is that there is often convergence between west and east. And if you
Hmm.
will be able to find that wave, you will be able to do, you can go big over there.
Wow. So what's the record there?
228.
And that's yours.
And that's mine. Yes, that's actually quite recent from last.
Kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, it was a very interesting flight from last March actually. It was just magic conditions, and I was just in the right time and in the right place to do that. And
So I'm looking at a map. Take me through it. Where'd you start? Where'd you end?
so that weekend there was a south wind. So I figure out if I want to go big, I have to pick up something in the south. I mean, I think it will be good to start by just describing it. It's a bit of a limited country in terms of size. It's very small. From west to east, I mean, the country is very narrow. It's 60 kilometers.
Yep.
So if you want to go big,
Yep.
you have to go north to south or south to north, where you have approximately 400
Hmm.
kilometers available of area to play. And that weekend, there was a south wind with cloud base approximately in 2,400 meters, and I figured out if I will be able to find the takeoff around the south part of the country, then I will be able to go as north as I can. Um, so a few months before that, I was visiting in the country, and I went with my girlfriend into just a biking tour, and I managed to venture in the mountains in the south, and I found this lovely south-facing cliff, and I just threw the coordination into my mobile, and I said, if I will tackle the right conditions, I need to check it out. And and then I went to Colombia and completely forgot about it. And when I came back, like the first weekend I was there, and suddenly, the perfect forecast for that. So I was preparing myself, and by 3 o'clock in the morning, I was driving down to the south, which is, you need to understand, it's like really full on desert. It's quite remote, not a lot of population over there, and I
I'm
got
looking at pictures right now. I just want to describe this to folks who are listening. I'm looking at Elo at the north end of the Gulf of. How do you call that? Is that Aqaba? Is that the Gulf of Aqaba?
Aqaba. Yeah, Aqaba. That's the
Aqaba.
Jordanian side.
Aqaba.
The Israeli side is Eilat.
Eilat. Yeah, okay, Eilat. I'm looking at pictures of Eilat now. Those mountains look pretty big, and man, is it dry. Wow. But the mountains look pretty sizable there.
Well, not compared to
Just
the
looking at
Alps,
pictures.
yeah, but I mean,
No, no, no. But
yeah,
Yotvada. Oh, it looks beautiful.
it is beautiful. I mean, this is the closest thing that you can imagine if you will fly above the moon. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so what was the name of the area that you started down there? Am I in the right zone? Were you that far south or north of that area?
Yes, so approximately around Aqaba, I mean, you will see that there is a cliff that basically crossing from south to north, and on that cliff I found a south-facing wall, and I climbed over there, and the forecast was just completely misleading. I got to the takeoff and just backwind inversion, just completely different than the forecast, and just okay, that's the way it is, and I realized I will not be able to do much with it. I just went running, and I camped that night on the takeoff, and the following morning, that was when the actual proper forecast came into realization. And already pretty much in the morning at like 9 o'clock, it was working already, and I could see birds above me, and the wind was already, you could feel that it's working quite well with 25 kilometers per hour. And I took off from there. I mean, the first hour were kind of a rodeo, and it was, a lot of work to keep the glider open above my head. But after an hour, I managed to go into 1,400 meters, and I said, "All right, let's glide to the north." And it just worked like a magic. Everywhere I was gliding, I just found the thermal at the end of the glide, and the more I progress into midday, the altitude is getting better and better, and there is some point in the flight where you need to make a decision whether you stick into the road, just flying above the road, or you're just going into a very remote part of the country where if you bomb out over there, you really are going to have like a proper expedition to get out of there.
Are you flying up the? Are you just looking at these roads? There's a couple north-south roads, and you're pretty much right on the border of Jordan. I'm imagining. Are you going up the road, kind of Lotan and Yahel and Paran? Is that the
E- ex-
Sukim
exactly. So if you
so
continue
far?
without
Wow,
exactly, so if you continue without road, it's pretty much a safe flight. So if you bomb out, you can always hitchhike somewhere. But until you get like 30, 40 kilometers after that, the road is going either to the west or to the north. And in the middle, you have piece of desert that's called Thin Desert, which is quite remote, and you would like to go over there only if you're pretty sure that you can clear it out.
so are you basically heading towards the Dead Sea then? And that's in this part of the flight?
Yes, you're heading into,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
it's
Wow, that looks amazing.
it's pretty a pretty cool area to fly above. It's just super wild. But
Wow.
but I was super lucky that
And
day.
you're by yourself?
Yeah, I was flying solo. I didn't have any partners with me, but conditions were perfect. I couldn't ask for any better conditions, and it was just a lot of surface just going up very easily. And somewhere around Arad, I don't know if you see that village over there. I encountered a beautiful inversion, which is basically a
Hmm.
wind coming from the south and from the east. And once I was on that, it was just a highway. Just put a speed bar and just go as far as you can. At
Wow.
that point, any nylon bag would go pretty far. Uh, yes,
Start hucking balloons out of your harness and try to beat them.
exactly. So it was a lovely feeling from that because the flight became super easy. It was easy, and it's just maximizing. And there are some flights that you are very much aware of yourself, and you're in control, but you're always kind of you're very on it. And some flights you are in a state of hyper flow. You just it's almost like you can look
Mm.
at yourself from a side.
Can't do anything wrong. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that at that point I was just in a really flow state. Everything was on automatic pilot, and for three
Mm.
4 hours I was in that zone, and it was just mind blowing. I mean, you fly, and at some point you're crossing above Jerusalem, and you see the Dead Sea just to the east of you, and you're crossing this amazing part of the country which is full on desert, and then you go into the more populated area, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So I just at some point, it was still winter time. So approximately around 3 o'clock, I started to feel that thermals are getting a bit weak, and you need to be careful where you're going to land over there. I mean, some parts around Jerusalem are not the best place to land, just because it's politically a bit complicated over there. So you want to be able to go into the valley area of the Dead Sea, and land over there, which is a bit more calm down. And so approximately around three
Mm.
o'clock, I started to realize that from here on there is a good possibility I'm going to bomb out, and then I was starting to kind of take my flight more to the northeast, and I just took my last glide over there, and it was lovely.
I'm having trouble understanding the border here. Is that it is half of the Dead Sea in Jordan? Is that what that is, or is that a ferry route? I can't tell what's going on here. Is it?
Well, many people like you are going to be very much confused about the borders over there. It's a very gray area. It's part of it is disputed, right? I mean, this is what I mean. Part of it will be
Sure.
what you call like the Palestinian territory, but that will be the part which is somewhere mid of Dead Sea, then toward of Jerusalem.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what are the? I mean, could I just come to Israel tomorrow and go flying? Hook up with the locals and go flying. Is that safe, or do I really need to understand? I mean, were you thinking a lot about how where you were going and where you were going to land, or as long as you kind of land on a road or nearby a road, you're all right?
So I mean, you need to be able to get in touch with the community, because you're going to get quite a lot of information about a takeoff area, which are pretty critical in a flatland zone. Um, so I think it's a good idea to, I mean, that will be the first stop. But within that, I mean, do
Hmm.
your homework, read the maps, and try to understand where you're flying and what the wind is doing that day. And like within that boundary, I mean, you have a lot of area to play with. But yes, absolutely. I mean, you can pack a glider tomorrow morning, and just go and fly over there.
Oh, I'm loving looking at the maps here and just imagining it all. Incredible. I can't for some reason XContest is blocking. I don't know what's going on, but I can't pull up your flight. Where did you end? I'm
I
looking at your flight, but there's no map or anything. It just shows 228.6K, but it does. I don't know. I've reloaded a million times. So I can't. Something's wrong with XContest right now. But where did you get past Jerusalem?
Yes, not by much. I landed just after Jericho.
Okay, I see it. Oh wow, that must have been so cool. And now, tell me what the Israeli flying community is big. It was this pretty inspiring to the community. Are there lots of people chasing it now and trying to beat your record? Are they going back to that same spot, or how many people fly in? Here it is. It's finally came up. I see it. Okay, how many people fly in Israel? How big is the community there?
I think that you have approximately 400 active pilots. So I
Okay,
wouldn't say that it's a very big community, but it's very active. So
I thought it was bigger than that. Yeah. Okay.
they are flying around, I mean, year round, and I have to say that the level over there is pretty good. I've seen as well Israeli pilots that never flew in the Alps, and then they're coming to the Alps, and it's completely different terrain, right? I mean, you need to understand how to fly in big mountains. So they give it a go, and they get it. They get it because they know how to
Hmm.
tackle a lot of wind, and they know how to you know uh, the takeoffs in Israel are sometimes not the easiest, and they're able to fly pretty well. So it's quite incredible to see that. The majority of the classical routes are actually not necessarily in the south; they're more in the north, where you see from the west. If you see a bit of north to Tel Aviv, Zichron, you can cross from there toward the Kinneret. That will be a lovely 70 kilometers, 70, 80 kilometers. And you have a lot of flying going on around Ari as well. That's completely in the north. From the Tavor, which is around the Galilee area. That's also a very popular flying area. And if you don't have a lot of wind that day, you can really be creative and go many directions. But you need to remember that the during from May until October, you have pretty predominant west going on. So I mean, within that period of time, you can only go east. Um, so it's something
And
important to
how
remember.
much of a sea breeze? How much of a sea breeze effect is there? Is that just a daily occurrence?
Yeah, it's very present over there. You need to think about your takeoff in those terms. You cannot. It's not like in the Alps where as long as you don't have a strong wind, you can pretty much go anywhere and take off. You really have to think about what's the meteorological wind and work with it. On the other end, you don't have the wind valley system, which is pretty awesome.
And do you tow there much, or is it all foot launching?
It's all foot launching. There was an attempt to work with towing a bit. I think that it's not being done anymore, and actually it's pity because I think that especially in the south where it's a bit more challenging to find the takeoff, especially around Beersheba area. I think that you can do wonders with towing.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like a good towing place. Would the roads be conducive to that? Not much traffic. Are there dirt roads that you could use for towing?
Um, in the north, yes. In the north, yes. Not very much in the south. In the south, it's a bit like flying in very remote area. I'm talking like India or Pakistan. I mean, you need to be ready
Hmm.
to fly with BV gear and to be ready to spend the night out and make sure that you have an in-reach and everything. That's if you're planning to go big in the south. Some areas, if you're going to bomb out, you might have a very good chance to spend the night out and like walk for 20, 30 kilometers.
God, I love it. That's awesome. I mean, I would imagine most people listening are like me, that blows them away a little bit. You don't think of Israel being really super remote. I think of it being, very populated and like you said, small. You're right. I mean, I'm looking at the map here, and you've got the population center around Jerusalem, and then it just goes into full desert.
Exactly, exactly. And there are two
Pretty
main
neat.
main features over there, which are really really cool. So one will be the Dead Sea area, which is first of all, beside the fact that you're flying in the lowest place on Earth, that's minus 400 meters. It's just stunning. It's a stunning area, and I mean, you cannot do big cross country from the Dead Sea because of the inversion over there, and everything is very very stable. But hike and fly wise, wow, that's I think this is really a nice place to explore. And then you have another feature, are the craters. The craters in Israel are just massive balls in the ground. Some of them are in a radius of approximately like 20, 30 kilometers, where this is like flying in the moon, and it's pretty
Hmm.
high. We're talking about 900 meters above sea level, and it's working pretty well in the shoulder seasons. And the beautiful part of it as well, that you can, I mean, if you're willing to walk a bit, you can you can take off from every part of the crater. You just need to walk and just find the proper edge against the wind, soar a bit, take the altitude, and then you can go somewhere.
Just now, it finally came up on XContest. Did you have cloud support all day?
Not much. Not much
Huh.
actually. That day, I mean, that specific record flight I did last March, I had like completely blue day. But very often, if you have conversion, you definitely see this from, across the Arava Desert, from Elat all the way to the Dead Sea. It's very easy to see that conversion. And yeah, I mean the thermals over there, especially around the Mitzpe Ramon, also generating a lot of clouds.
How far do you think you could go? What's on the table there? Could you fly southern border to northern border, or reverse? I mean, could you get all the way to Haifa, for example? It's not too much farther than where you went, really. I guess you could.
I think that
Maybe that's no, but that's probably too much. That's probably too far to the west, though. You'd probably hit the sea breezes you got up there, right?
could be, but I think that if you pick up a day which is not very, I mean, not too predominant west wind, then I think that, I mean, you can go pretty far. I mean, you have to remember that in March I was still working on a winter clock, so I was,
Yeah,
by
sure.
three
Yeah.
o'clock I was already pretty much with a weak sun. If you're looking on some of the forecast in May and April, you'll be able to see in cloud base in 3,000 meters, um, and north wind or south wind, which are pretty good for flying, and you have another 3-4 hours of daylight. So if you take my flight, add another 3-4 hours, you yeah, you can. I think that you can do the
Yeah,
300
definitely.
meters. Yeah.
300 kilometers. Yeah, like Nazareth or something. That'd be pretty neat. Go land in Nazareth. Oh, amazing. You talked about, just how some flights you can't really do anything wrong. You're just in flow. Is that something you've experienced a bunch? Rarely? And if so, and when you do experience, is it something if you found you can kind of induce and do something in your mind to get you into flow, or is it just happens?
It's very different from one flight to another. I mean, all of my big flights, I can attest that I was in a flow mode. I had another 200 kilometers flight, a triangle in Fish last year, and I was definitely in that zone. I had 200 kilometers a week and a half ago from Annecy, and I experienced that. I feel like when everything is turning into automatic pilot, and you just let the wing fly, and you stop calculating too much, and you just put your fears aside, this is when you can really maximize your performance.
Hmm.
That's as well, I mean, how it works for me. When I'm overthinking it, when I'm not listening to my instincts, when I'm trying to, yeah, basically just overthink the day, or set up too much expectations, then this is, yeah, well, just I'm not performing so well, and somehow I'm trying too hard, or thinking too much about it. It's not working that well.
When you think about flying in Israel, it sounds like you travel quite a bit. You're down in Colombia. You've experienced flying in different parts of the world. It's just not something we hear about too much, flying in Israel. Would Israel be a destination you would go to fly if you didn't have the history there, and that you hadn't grown up there? Is it warrant that kind of, is the flying that good that everybody should know about this and start getting over there and sending it?
I mean, I wouldn't go to Israel and try to break my personal record, right? That's something I wouldn't
Hmm.
do, because I cannot say that every day is a magic day. I mean, it comes. You have, like, I don't know, like 10 days like that in a season. Um, but
Okay.
if you would like to find a cool country where you know you can maximize your airtime and still enjoy exploring a country on air and ground, I think it is something to look at. I wouldn't go over there if I
Mm.
didn't had the connection I have with Israel. I have to admit. Um, but because I have that connection, it kind of forced me to try to maximize my airtime in Israel and my nature. I like to go and explore areas, and I went over there and saw what I could do with a paraglider, and I came across those beautiful lines. So that was inspiring for me. I mean, I'm always trying to do something which is a bit off the beaten route. I mean, if I did something, I'm trying to go into another area and try to do something a bit different.
Is it an appropriate place to maybe do some bivy, or is it just too dry?
Mm,
Would or maybe bivy with car support or something?
Probably with the car support, but it's not the best place for BV simply because you have a limited area of takeoffs.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of mountains over there, and the few that you have, it's a bit, sometimes problematic to go over there. I mean, for example, you have the Hermon in the north, but you need to have authorization from the military to take off over there. So I wouldn't. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So I wouldn't count on it. And let's say if you take off from there and you bomb out somewhere in the center of the country, I mean, to hike to a takeoff might you know be a bit of a bit difficult. So
Mm.
what I do recommend is hike and fly. Hike and fly days, especially around the Dead Sea, is just magnificent. It's very
Mm.
beautiful, and it's remote, but not too remote. You still have the highway which is kind of crossing the Dead Sea south to north. But it's a beautiful hike, and for people especially that didn't taste the desert, that could be quite a kick.
Have you spent much time in nearby Jordan? I hear wonderful things about Jordan. I've never heard of anything about it for flying. It looks very flat, but uh, do you know? Have you flown in Jordan? Do you know much about Jordan?
I so when you go flying in the Dead Sea, you always see the Jordanian side, right? Which is it's not flat at all. They have mountains
Oh,
of 2,500 meters over there, and
whoa!
it's just crossing as well
Really?
from north to south. And I think that you can do amazing stuff over there. I never flew over there. Actually, I was
Yeah.
planning to go over there for a small expedition with a few Swiss friends. The problem over there is you need to get a special authority to fly over there. I got in contact with the local community in Jordan, but it seems like they're just very pessimistic about what kind of a permit you can get to explore the area. But if we put aside, the, what you can do with the authorities and just focus on the flying part, I think it's super interesting area to fly in.
I mean, when you look at Google Earth, compared to Israel or Egypt, I mean, man, there's a long distance between places.
Mm,
there's there's not a lot of towns and stuff.
yeah,
It just looks vast.
it is vast. It is, and but it's not a boring desert. It's not like all of it is like the Sahara and just boring dunes. It's very very
Yeah.
technical terrain. You have like gorges, and you have a lot of cliffs, and some of it is dunes, and some of it is just rough terrain, and it goes from a 1,000 meter above sea level into minus 400 meters. So it's just you have it's a very versatile terrain. Beautiful,
Mm.
just beautiful.
I, I, I was recently watching a documentary on the I think it is the yeah, here it is, the King Salman Nature Reserve in Saudi. I mean, I'm looking at it from space right now. It's just massive.
It
It's
is.
incredible. Yeah, it's a neat part of the world, isn't it? It's a part of the world that you know on this side of the pond we don't discover. We don't get to that part of the world very much. I had a couple clients on my boat when I back in my boat days that were from Israel, and the way they spoke about it just sounds magical. It's the sea and the Dead Sea and the towns and the food. I'd go there just to eat. It
Yeah,
sounds
it's hard to
amazing.
compete with the food in Israel. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. And
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
pretty awesome.
you can visit in the beach and just just enjoy a bit of a easy life, or you can go down in the side on the south, or biking or trail running, and it's just a lovely playground. It's a lovely playground. So it's something that
Mm.
I think that we can look further into it. And in that sense, I think that as a community, we need to look a bit more on the Middle East altogether. I think that there is much to
Yeah.
explore over there. I mean, it's an area that gets a lot of sun, and it's not that flat as we tend to think. I mean, there are many places where we can take off, and but it's going off the beaten road. You need to be able to have a mindset of exploration. So forget about the car,
Mm.
and use your legs, and try to think creatively about the different lines, and study the weather patterns over there, which is another issue. I mean, the forecast in that region is not necessarily the best, because I mean, the more remote is
Yeah.
that, the less measurements you have. So the forecast is not necessarily very reliable, but it's consistent. I think it's consistent because of the sun.
Ah, man, you've inspired me. I'm excited. Well, Elliot, thank you for sharing about your flight and your experiences there in the Middle East. And I hope the folks listening will get inspired to hop on a plane and go explore some of this. I mean, I've spent most of this time just looking at the map and spinning around and getting familiar with the area. The closest I've come really is Turkey. I've done it, did a World Cup there, and I've done the Ola Deniz things, but I haven't done any of this stuff to the south, and not and except Morocco and places further south in Africa. But it looks like a lot of fun.
Yes, yes, it is. I did actually. I mean, in the last 4 or 5 years, where I was spending a bit more time exploring that area in Israel, I thought that it will be a good idea to have like a small guidebook for hike and fly, and that's available for
Mm,
free online. So just search hike and fly Israel, and there are some a few possibilities of what you can do over there. I think that that could be a good start. But you need to remember, it's not all pink. I mean, sometimes you'll get to a
yeah.
takeoff, it will be just uh, going to be too strong, or it's going to be not exactly according to the forecast, or the border over there is not something that you want to tackle with. The funny thing is that actually I think that the best lines, because of the west wind, will be to take off somewhere from the Golan Heights, and just go east. But in that case, and if you look on the the cloud base around Syria, it's pretty neat. So you can take off over there and land in Damascus,
Mm,
and that's probably possible almost
that
on a
seems a
daily
little
basis.
dicey right now, but
Exactly. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'm not recommending it. I'm saying it's possible. I'm not saying don't do
yeah.
it. Although it's very tempting over there. So I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to do a little bit of study on the maps and the borders and everything before you go. But that just looks fantastic. I just pulled up some pictures of the Golan Heights, and it's gorgeous.
Every weekend, the local
Uh,
community are gathering somewhere and trying to fly together. And I think that it will be smart to, in the first visit over there, at least do that. Get with a few of the locals that will get you to have a briefing on the site, and what you can do, and what you cannot do, and just fly with them a bit. And perhaps in your second visit over there, you can be a bit more adventurous.
Adventurous. Yeah, cool. Elliot, thanks, man. I appreciate it. What a fun talk, and it's good to see your smiling face and dream about the Middle East. And thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Gavin, have a good one.
You too. If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So, for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.